All right, welcome to tip 96 in the series 101 tips to ace your promotional exam. As a reminder, my website listed below has a lot of great free resources for all ranks of personnel. Check it out. And these tips are based on, or the series of tips are obviously based on my latest book from Fire Engineering Books and Videos of the same name, available off their website as well as mine below. All right, tip 96. Understand that the higher you go, meaning the higher up in the rank structure you go, the more of getting the promotion is about fit. Fit, think about that. We'll talk more about that. You don't understand the word fit until you're on the other side of the panel, but I didn't want to believe that, but I understand it now. So it's about fit moving upwards. Now, when I talk about fit, a lot of people go, well, how do you best describe fit? The hard part is, it's hard to describe fit. And a lot of people say, well, I should have been promoted because I had the best resume. And I've mentioned this multiple times. What is the best resume? That's subjective. Well, I had the most education. So I had the most experience, 50 years on the job, plus a master's degree, plus whatever. Great. Well, depending on how your system works with your civil service rules and everything else, every department's different. But when you're taking, say, an engineer exam or a firefighter position or a company officer position, typically those are civil service positions, meaning there's a typical, I guess, mechanism. It's already structured of how the people get promoted, meaning like in our department, to become a captain, you have to first pass the fire captain written examination with at least 70%. So you got to get 70% of the written test. Those that get 70% on the 100 question multiple choice then go to the next phase, which is the assessment center. Captains have to go through an oral board, 2 emergency or tactical simulations, a personnel scenario, and maybe some in-basket or writing exercise. Then they make the list if they pass everything there. So there's pretty much a structure in place. But think about it, even though you still got to pass all those events, fit may come in the sense of, think about your raters. What are your raters who are across the panel from you or across the table looking for? I've talked about those things in previous tips. They're looking for obviously capable, competent people, passion, enthusiasm. They're looking for people that are going to, hit the ground running, give back, be a great asset now and in the future, have potential, be good people, have good character traits, be great ambassadors of the department, all those things. Well, fit does come in, but especially comes in when you're talking about positions like fire chief, assistant chief, deputy chief, where there may not be a full assessment center or civil service process. A lot of those positions are usually oral boards. That's why it's not uncommon if you're going for, say, a fire chief position, you'll probably have a series of oral boards, maybe one oral board with other fire chiefs from the neighborhood. There may be an oral board with city staff, your future teammates, not just the crew members in the department, but the teammates that you'll have in the city, like the police chief, the parks and rec director, all those folks. There may be a panel with union executive board members or panel with the city manager, who's your boss or your future boss. That's when it comes down to more fit. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it applies to non-civil service positions, which are typically those 40-hour chief officer rank positions that are more at will in most departments. So you may think you're the best fit when in fact you're not, and don't take that personally. And I say that because a couple of years ago, I put my name in the hat for a number of fire chief vacancies around the Bay Area here. And I had all the qualifications. I mean, when you look at what the departments were looking for in fire chief candidates in regards to minimum KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, training, education, experience, I met all those qualifications. And when you looked at the highly desirable qualifications, I usually met a lot of those. So I thought, hey, on paper, I had what it takes to be a fire chief. And I think to this day, I still do. But you also got to look at, okay, now you've got a fire chief, you're going for a fire chief position, or I was in my case. And now the city manager, who may be my future boss, is looking at me, and all he or she cares about is, will they be a good fit to the city staff team? Meaning now I'm not just the fire chief, but I'm also a team member of the city, meaning my peers at the city, the weekly city staff meetings, which will be the police chief at the same level. I'm no better or worse than if I'm a fire chief than the police chief or the parks and rec director or the library director or the HR director or the, whatever city position or city division there is. And you got a city manager who's got obviously their own agenda, their own marching orders, their own pet projects they want to get done. And that's the hard part. I remember I did well. I mean, I came out, I think, in the top 5 for some of the fire chief positions, but I didn't get the fire chief positions, which is probably a blessing in disguise. Look at the headaches that some of those folks are dealing with, and more power to them. I don't know if I want to deal with some of those politics and stress, but that's fine. But I tried. But I remember talking to some of my friends who were fire chiefs that were on those panels. And I remember asking the question afterwards, like, hey, I have what it takes. And they're all like, no, Steve, you can be a fire chief. There's a department out there that would probably love to have you as a fire chief. But for this test that you're going through right now, even one of my friends goes, you're not a good fit. And I'm like, dude, he goes, it's about fit. And this guy has been a fire chief for 10 years, very qualified guy, friend of mine. And I trust him and I respect him. And he goes, it's hard to describe fit, but given what the city manager was looking for, he goes, you wouldn't have been a good fit. The city manager was looking for more of a person. He goes, you came across too nice. Nice is good. Please be nice. But this is not what the city manager wanted at the time. The city manager was looking for someone to come on in and not be a jerk, but also probably be a little more firm and more, I guess, hold people more accountable because they had some challenges within that respective department. So it's hard because I thought I'd be a good fit, but obviously the city manager didn't, nor did the other fire chiefs. And even that one fire chief goes, Steve, you're not going to appreciate it now, but in the future, you'll look back and say that was a blessing in disguise, because had you gotten the position, you probably wouldn't have been a good fit and you might have been out of a job. You might have gone sideways with your boss, the city manager, and then obviously had a lot of challenges at that point. And remember, as a fire chief, you're not union protected. So it's like, hey, we don't like you anymore. So you know what? You got 2 weeks, pack your bags, have a nice day. I didn't want to be in that position. But that said, most of you may not be going for fire chief positions, but fit still applies. And I think even for entry level promoted ranks, meaning like engineer, company officer, the first levels of promotions, there still is the potential that fit may come in there. And I think that's that key of, you as a candidate need to ask those people that are in the position, or ask your fire chief, ask other people that are raters, what are you looking for in regards to fit? You'll hear a lot of good opinions. It's hard. I mean, everyone will have a slightly different opinion, but really a lot of the stuff is things I've talked about in every episode previously. It's sort of everything in a conglomeration, all just blobbed together in one big bag of dog poop, I guess, in a good way, smelling better than dog poop. But anyway, fit is critical. Don't take it personal. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, this is bullshit. I'm going to sue. I'm going to file a grievance. I didn't get the promotion. Hey, you know what? Probably it might have been discriminatory. A lot of times it might not be discriminatory. It might have just been that they didn't think you'd be the best fit for the position. And before you get mad at them, they get mad at yourself, because you obviously didn't demonstrate what they really wanted to see. Or you did demonstrate the true you, which is a good thing, because you don't want to sell yourself as someone you're not, but they felt that the true you was not a good fit, So back to the fire chief example, I remember that same fire chief, a lot of great advice he provided me. But one of the things he told me, he goes, when you're going into, say, a fire chief position or any position at that level, you got to figure out, do they want a caretaker or do they want a change agent? Because a caretaker or a change agent means someone to shake things up, usually for the better, obviously. I would hope change things for the better. Or do you want a caretaker? A caretaker just is someone that status quo is good. Well, this city within the job flyer is funny because they pretty much wanted a change agent. The unfortunate part is I sold myself. I shouldn't have done it this way. I should have just been myself, but I went into that interview describing myself as the change agent because that's what they billed it for, or they wanted, supposedly. Well, then finding out after, they didn't want a change agent because the guy they hired was status quo guy. And you know what? The guy that they hired at status quo is doing a great job. They love him. And so had I got into the position as a change agent, I might not have been still employed there, and I might not have been a happy individual there. So I don't know how you get around that. Well, I do know how. Don't believe everything that you read to be true, even if when it's this official city announcement. But I think the main key is always be yourself. I mean, I think, trust me, there's a time and a place for a change agent, time and a place for caretaker, and sometimes it's a balance. Sometimes, though, there is the need to be a lot of a change agent. Sometimes there's the need to be a lot of a caretaker, meaning just, hey, hold the fort down for a couple months because, the current fire chief is, injured or out sick and he'll be back in 3 months. But you know what? Just be a caretaker for the time being. Okay. I mean, you got to know your marching orders in any position, just like when we tragically lost Captain Mark McCormick back in February 13th of 2005. That was a first line of duty death, very tragic for us. Well, we tried to see what we can learn out of this. So when Mark died tragically, the fire chief immediately tapped our training captain at the time to do the internal investigation. I mean, OSHA and NIOSH were going to do their investigations, but we wanted to do an internal investigation. So the training captain was tapped to do the investigation. He turned out to be the fire chief in the future. He was a great guy, still is a great guy, but he was a good fit, perfect one to do that investigation. And training division usually handles investigations anyway when it comes to safety related stuff and injuries, accidents. I get it. But so that training captain was told, hey, you're going to be reassigned for a month, probably 2 months to do the full investigation. Well, at the time, we needed a replacement training captain. Well, the announcement came out of, hey, we need a temporary training captain, month, maybe 2 months, of someone to come from the line, the firehouses, a captain to jump in and hold the fort down. Because that training captain, once he finishes investigation, he's going to be coming back to his position. So we interviewed. I was the one that got the position, and I was pretty much told, hey, the previous training captain's done a great job. He already put together a great plan. So, I mean, add your own flavor to it, Steve, but don't rock the boat. Just, go with the plan, talk to the guy. And that was my job, be a caretaker. Just make sure the train stays on time, keep the train on the tracks. Obviously with my own personal flair, but to not disrupt what the previous guy had done. So that's how that worked out. And it was fine because I knew my marching orders is, hey, I'm the caretaker. Well, then it was interesting because I was going for deputy chief promotional exam a handful of years later. Excuse me, not promotional exam. We were looking for a temporary deputy chief, sort of the same thing, but this was for different circumstances. The current deputy chief of training had been placed on leave. And I remember there was an immediate need for a temporary deputy chief. Well, I was preparing for deputy chief. So I went in there again, thinking that they wanted a caretaker. And I remember going into my interview to the fire chief, basically saying, hey, you know what? I'm willing to, basically I wasn't going to rock the boat. And it was funny because the fire chief looked at me, he goes, no, he goes, don't be that way. If I give this position to you, he goes, I know what you can do in training. You've got the skills, you've got the talents. If you get this temporary position, treat it like it's your own. Own the position, take it to the next level. And I'm like, oh, and I didn't want to be disrespectful. He goes, don't worry about disrespect. Take it to the next level, and then, so that's what I did. But he obviously wanted me in the position, but I'm glad he mentioned that to me because I would have gone in thinking, okay, I'll just be a caretaker, not sit on my ass and do nothing and check the box. But again, you always want to be respectful to your predecessors. But again, you also got to know your marching orders from your boss. Thankfully, the boss says, no, take it to the next level, so that's okay. But there's a time and a place for both. But fit's a hard word to describe, and again, as I've mentioned, even throughout my career, it is probably one of the hardest things for me to understand and appreciate, but I get it. It's also something hard to put your finger on it when someone asks you, what is the best fit? It's hard because and I say that because a few years ago, we had a battalion chief's test. So we had a bunch of captains going for battalion chief. And I remember our assistant chief at the time, he made a comment because the captain's like, what are you guys looking for in battalion chiefs? Are you looking for the hammer? Are you looking for the nice guy? And this assistant chief goes, okay, we're always looking for nice people. Trust me. We're always looking for nice people. But he goes, there's a time and place for everything. And he goes, the hard part is, he goes, every promotion is different. And I'm not saying at the captain level, but in a small department, it could be, but in a larger department, especially when you get up to the 40-hour positions, the chief officer ranks, this assistant chief goes, sometimes we may be looking for a great first baseman, baseball analogy. But you know what? Maybe the next vacancy, we're looking for a good pitcher. The next vacancy, we may be looking for a good utility player. Next vacancy, it may be a good first baseman. His point was that anytime there's a vacancy, don't assume they're looking for the exact same thing and fit. Because again, maybe the skill sets that are necessary at that time have changed or are different based on how good or strong the strengths and weaknesses of the team. I think that's that challenges. So don't assume that just because there's a promoted spot, you might be a good fit, because you may be good at what you do, but maybe you're not the best person at that point in time. Maybe the next test you are, the test after that or the one after that, but maybe this time they're looking for something slightly different. And that is nothing against you, it's just the way it is. That said, you got to just be yourself. Don't try to be someone you're not. And what's meant to be will be meant to be. Maybe it means you stay at your current rank for longer than you wanted to, but you know what? Find me a time in anyone's career where they wouldn't be happy to go back a rank or two. I mean, there's days where I go, why did I promote past firefighter? Why did I promote past captain, past battalion chief? I'm sarcastic, but there are days when I think about that. I've enjoyed all the ranks, but hey, enjoy your current rank. It's not as bad, hopefully, as you think it is or what it could be, because you know what, be careful what you ask for on the other side. So as always, thank you very much for the gift of your time. Feel free to reach out if I can ever be of assistance to you. And until the next episode, you'll be safe, take care, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.